Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the participants who have registered this afternoon to listen to one of the very interesting topic, water, an inevitable part of our life. What a great privilege for me. I am Professor Dhanshekaran, Vice President, Chitkara University, and also Secretary of ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter for the society year 2020 and 2021. With me, I have my core team also taking great pride and privilege to join this session. Let me welcome Mr. Ajay Bansal, who is the immediate past president and the mentor for ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter. And I also have Mr. Rajan Mittal. He is the president-elect for Chandigarh chapter of ISHRAE for the current society year 2020 and 2021. And my great companion and partner in crime, Anil Dugal Saab, he is the program chair for the society year of 2020 and 2021 for ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter. ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter is actually keeping all of you are very busy in this most demanding time where we have isolated and kept ourselves in a confined location. It is very much important for us to keep our knowledge quotient be awake so that we don't get into a situation of not knowing what's happening around. At the same time, we are not able to enhance our knowledge also. So that is why Chandigarh chapter of ISHRAE has taken this opportunity so seriously. For the last 1.5 to 2 months, we've been bombarding you, the audience, with continuous programs, and that too the programs are most sought after, delivered by some of the elite experts. It is very hard to listen to these kind of stalwarts. So God is so kind to us, and we've been able to take the time of all these people so far. And one such topic is actually arranged today for all the audience. It is the water. Who is a better person on this earth to talk about water? My great friend and my colleague and my companion, Mr. Chintan Daiya. Chintan Daiya is one such expert available in India who has by birth coming from a family who has associated with water for last 4 generations. What more you want? This gentleman has worked very closely in water from the conservation point of view, from the usage point of view, from the treatment point of view, and from the processing point of view. He is the great known expert, and he is also the promoter and managing partner of Deep Plumbing Associates based out of Mumbai, who has done too many prestigious projects on all the counts what I mentioned earlier. Number 2, Chintan Daiya comes with great expertise of skill enhancement, and he is the chief skill expert for plumbing and heating skill, part of World Skills India, which has made him to represent India in number of international competitions, including Euroskill and World Skills competition held in Budapest and in Russia. And he was also expert for the World Skills competition held in 2017 at Abu Dhabi. Incidentally and luckily, I have traveled along with Chintan Daiya within the country and outside the country. God is so kind. We have spent tremendous time in exchanging our knowledge and what is best for the students in the field of water. Can you believe, with the motivation and the support of Daiya, Chitkara University has started a diploma program in plumbing and public health, and we've been further motivated to start an undergraduate program in BTech in plumbing and public health engineering. The India's largest plumbing lab that is there in Chitkara is actually a baby done by deep plumbing consultants, part of Chintan Daiya. So there is lot more things to talk and lot more things to listen, because this gentleman comes from a family who by gene, by birth, in the blood, is so closely associated with water. When I approached Dayaji that, sir, we need a presentation from you for our audience, who will be mix of students, consultants, contractors, HVAC professionals, and plumbing professionals also. He said it's going to be a tough audience, but I will not make the topic so technical, but I will make the topic so interesting so that I will believe and I will have a confidence that when they finish this session and they go back to their home, definitely they will be able to at least practice 5% of the learning what they have taken today. And I am too sure this is going to be a great learning for all of us, because all of us are believing, whether it is air or it is soil or it is water, भगवान का दिया हुआ है, and हमने ठेका लिया है इसको बर्बाद करने के लिए. Sorry for using these words, but that is our attitude. Mahatma Gandhi has proudly said, we have no authority, I repeat, we have no authority to spoil the air, water, and soil, and we have every responsibility, let me repeat, we have every responsibility to leave the air, water, and soil to the next generation the way we got it from our previous generation. A very, very powerful statement, very powerful statement. And I'm too sure India is today in such a situation, the water scarcity is beyond our head, and people are eating our brain, and people are running away, and the source of water is depleting, and people are really, really finding it very difficult to get a good, healthy water for drinking. So it is very much important, it is paramount for us to take this topic so seriously and bring some lifestyle changes, so that the way we conduct ourselves, the way we behave, let us preserve this God-given gift of air, water, and soil, so that we are able to preserve and present this in the same form what we got to the next generation. So with these words, let me welcome Chintan Daiya ji as a presenter. Daiya sir, you can unmute. Yeah.
Yes,
And
sir. Thank you very much.
you can take over, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dhanashekaran sir. It is indeed a privilege for me to talk about water. Um, and thank you for the humble introduction about myself. Yes, I belong to a family. I'm the fourth generation in a family which has been dedicated to plumbing, more importantly, water. Um, this is something which is very water is such a subject which is very, very passionate. It is very close to my heart. Even if somebody will look me up on social media, you will always find in the introduction it says Chintan Daiya, passionate about water. So yeah, today's topic, what we are talking about is water, and as Dana sir rightly said, that I will not make it very technical, but it is going to be interesting. So I've taken the liberty of renaming our session today. I'm calling it "Water, a Vital Element." So we'll acronymize it and call it WAVE, Water, a Vital Element. So WAVE is also water that way. Going ahead, before I start this presentation, really, there's a very beautiful Sanskrit shlok, which is kind of a prayer to water, to Jal. It says, Prithvi Vyameka Subhashita Jala Jeevan Dayak Sadupyog Karyat Na Kuryat Avakar Jalasya Raksha Bhavate Smak Pratham Kartavya Sadupyogena Jeevan Bhavishyati Bhavya. Basically, what it means here is your world, your earth is so beautiful just because the water is life giving. And it is necessary that you use it in a positive manner. If you do not use it in a positive manner, you will have problems eventually. The second line of the shlok really says is Jalasya Raksha Bhavate Smaka Pratham Kartavya. That means we are the people who have to protect our water resources, and make sure that we do sadupyog of it. We do a good positive usage of it. That's when Jivan Bhavishyati Bhavya. That means your life in the future will be beautiful and will be vast. So that's what basically, this is a very old Sanskrit shlok, maybe around 5,000, 6,000 years old from the Vedas. And I strongly believe in this. So what we are going to cover today really is that what is the availability of water globally and locally, especially in India. Of course, that's where we live. We'll also talk about the history of plumbing and conservation, where how has water reached us, how have we been using it, how have we been conserving it. Particularly, we'll talk about Asia because that's where we live. There's a very beautiful case study which I have, which is from the plumbing and water supply in 2600 BC. So that's around 5,000 years ago. What is the need to go green? Why do we need to become greener, and why do we need to conserve water? Then I will also talk about the introduction to efficient products and ratings. So what kind of products are there which can make us more efficient, make us save water? What does the future hold? I know right now the present itself is very scary considering the corona situation. But hey, guess what? Your biggest fighter when it comes to fighting with corona is water, right? Don't they tell you that every 20 minutes you have to go and wash your hands with soap and what? Water. So yeah, that's your biggest warrior when it comes to battling corona. Then we'll also talk about what kind of rebates are there on conservation of water. How do you reduce your consumption? And lastly, I will leave you with a question: is do I really need to save water? I, as in we people, do we really need to save water? This is something what we will be concluding at. So yeah, let's start at the availability of water when we look at a global level. So how much water do we really have? This planet, we say that, some say that it's 70% water, some say around 80%. There's a huge amount of, talk when you say that how much water do we really have? This is, it's a simple thing, just two molecules of hydrogen and one single molecule of oxygen went ahead and combined to make this beautiful element which has made life, every single creature on this planet, every single living organism, microorganism relies on this beautiful combination of the molecules. That's water, the H2O. Of course, there is still places to be found in the universe, or the known universe, or the known space, or known whatever existence we have, that without water life cannot exist. So it's a very very simple logic that this little element made life possible for it. So effectively, yeah, coming back to how much water do we really have? It is 1385984 kilometer cubes of water. That is like a huge number, right? So 1 kilometer cube is roughly around, not roughly, to make it exact. Let's say it's 1 billion cubic meters, and 1 cubic meter is 1,000 liters of water. So thus, let's multiply the billion meter cube into 1,000 liters per meter cube, and then we will come to a particular figure which will show us that what are we looking at. So in just one cubic kilometers of water, we have so much water. So if we multiply this with the amount of cubic kilometers of water which is available on this planet, we are looking at a big, big, big figure. So it's like 1 quadrillion or a billion million. I exactly don't even know how do you put this in figures. I think it's a quadrillion. So that much water is available to us. So many liters of water, right? That's a huge amount of water. So why do we really care? Why do we worry about water all the time? So yeah, as I said, it's 1,386 quadrillion liters of water available to us. A quadrillion is a billion trillion liters of water. So what we are seeing here is a graphical representation of all the water available to us on this planet. So what you're seeing here, the green globe that you're seeing, is the total amount of water available to us on this planet. Converting that to the fresh water available to us, this second larger globe that you're seeing in blue, that is the amount of fresh water available to us. From this fresh water, there's a lot of fresh water trapped in many different things like glaciers, snow, human body, microorganisms. So many places the water is trapped. So the smaller blue globe indicates after all that water is taken out, what is available to us. And eventually there's a very, very small dot. I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but yeah, that little dot is the actual amount of fresh water which you can really consume and use. So yeah, there goes your 1,386 quadrillion liters of water to a very small, tiny dot on Earth, which can be hardly seen. Moving on, you still think there isn't enough water? Um, let's go ahead and see what the case is. So for that, let's have a little environmental one-on-one situation talk over here. We all hear about the greenhouse effect, the greenhouse gases, and many wonderful terms that the environmentalists like to come up with. So what is a greenhouse really? A greenhouse is basically a glass house. It's usually used in colder environments, colder countries, and it's a nurturing environment for plants that is set apart from the surrounding environment. It does not let the outer cold come and affect the metabolism and the growth of the plants. So it is a space wherein various conditions like heat, light, and moisture can be controlled to a greater degree than is possible in the outer settings. So here what happens, the heat from the sun comes in and is pretty much trapped inside this glass house, and it keeps the house warm. So how does this apply to our planet? Let's have a graphical representation of that. So basically the sunlight reaches the earth. Some of the heat is released back into the atmosphere. Some is absorbed by the earth, and most of it is reabsorbed by the greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases basically are carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, methane, some of the gases which we humans specialize in producing. And what eventually happens is that these gases are in the atmosphere. Of course, we all know that, right? It cannot go out of the atmosphere. It is going to be a part of the Earth's atmosphere. It stays in the atmosphere, and we have been just going on increasing it. These greenhouse gases, as they are fondly called, specialize in trapping all this heat that is generated in Earth. And this heat just keeps on increasing. So that is the greenhouse effect of the planet. So how does this affect our water? What does water have to do with the heat of this planet? Okay, the next slide tells you about that. So this is basically a representation in a graphical manner, which shows that where does most of the heat which is generated on Earth or absorbed by the atmosphere get relieved. No points for guessing. Most of the heat absorbed by this planet's atmosphere is transmitted to the oceans. As you can see, the biggest graph shows that the oceans absorb most of it. Of course, the other is left in the atmosphere. Some of it is left onto the continents, the land mass on this planet. The glaciers also absorb some of it. The Arctic Sea ice, the Greenland ice, and the Antarctic ice. So majority what you will see is ice and water are absorbing most of the heat of this greenhouses gases which we are generating here. How does that really affect us? There you go. We've been hearing about this all the time, right? The ocean levels are rising, the sea levels will rise. There are even countries today who we had never imagined ever in my life, at least as a child when I grew up. I had never thought there would be something known as a climatic refugee. There are countries today we are seeing they are asking the UN for climatic refuge. Unbelievable, right? It sounds so maddening. What I'm showing here in this image, you will see that in 100 years, Venice will be submerged. Yes, where I live in Mumbai too might have a bigger impact. Most of the Mumbai will be submerged. Then in the next 200 years, most of our oceans will rise by around 200 meters. Can you believe that 200 meters of water rising is, sorry, in 200 years, the water will be rising by 3 meters. So can you believe that in 3 meter rise of water, Los Angeles, Amsterdam, Hamburg, St. Petersburg, San Francisco, and Lower Manhattan are just gone. As you see, the water rises after another 300 years, it rises another 4 meters. After 400 years, it will rise 6 meters. And you can see south of London, Shanghai, and Edinburgh are at risk. You will see the map also on the right side shows what the Earth will look like in around 800 years. It will be extremely unbelievable the kind of landmass which is left behind. In 1,000 years, you can expect the whole of New York, London, Taiwan to be totally submerged. So if we do not start reducing our um, heat generation, our greenhouse gases, our waters will keep rising. And trust me on this, there is no turning back. There's no another planet that you will be able to run to. We've already been hearing that some of the biggest ice masses in the northern hemisphere have been breaking. There have been situations where an ice mass almost the size of Texas has just broken and joined the ocean. So you better be careful about that. So the water is going to increase. Why are we worried that the water is decreasing, right? So here's a beautiful picture from the Antarctic where you can see Mother Nature is practically crying. It just visualizes it. It just squeezes your heart to see this. That how is Mother Nature crying? So this is basically what I like to caption this image as tears for fears. This is something we've become very habituated to now. We're just immune to reading these kind of news all the time. Luckily, the media has left aside these kind of stories, and now they are covering Corona. They're busy about that. So lately, the newspaper, when I pick up and I don't see these kind of articles, I feel a little better. But that's not really changing the situation. Situation is still, it remains the same. There are situations where people have been saying that uh, in my city, we in Mumbai, where I live, we most of the times face situations that there are 30% water cuts, 50% water cuts. We have to we have to depend on unscrupulous methods like suck into the groundwater, or be reliant on water mafia. There are situations in our country where violence has taken place for water. People have lost lives. It is so painful to think that a 9-year-old girl was shot over a clash between members of two families over a collection of water from a public tube well. I mean, come on, it's so sad to see that. There are stories which say that people do not want to rely on religion. In our country, the biggest factor when it comes to bonding or separating is religion. But when it comes to water, when it comes to survival, people are ready to forsake giving up their sacred places. They say that we do not want a shrine, we just want water. So yeah, that's kind of scary and saddening at the same time. One more story which I came across once upon a time, where the Supreme Court has given a ruling. It says that no toilets is the fundamental right violation. So this article, just to summarize it, of course we won't read the whole thing. Here it says that it talks about basically girls going to schools, and I have personally been to some of these municipal schools as part of the organizations I was involved with. There, the toilets and the washroom facilities were in such deplorable state that you could not even walk past it, leave alone using it. So if imagine if you have a girl child, if your child is a girl and has to go to such a school and has to use such a sanitation facility, it would be very, very unhygienic and unsanitary. So the child could not be able to use that. So why would the child go to a school then? Many of the parents, like me, I have twin daughters, so I would not like to send my daughters to any school or an educational institution where they do not have a proper sanitation facility. So basically what happens is no sanitation is equal to illiteracy. So there you go. Absence of water can even affect literacy levels of a country, especially when we are talking about the female population. So now, okay, come on, coming back to how much water do we really have? We saw this beautiful global representation and how much water we really have. But when we look about it, coming back, we saw that the 96.54% of our total water is in the oceans and bays, which is again, as I said, 1,300 and odd quadrillion liters of water. From that, the percentage of fresh water, if you see, which is left, is trapped in ice caps, glaciers, and permanent snow, which is, yeah, we are doing a good job trying to melt it all the time. So that is 1.74%. I'm sure that has reduced because this study was done sometime in 1993 when I was still probably studying. Then there is a lot of water trapped in the ground, which is 1.69% of the total fresh total water which we have, from that groundwater, there is 0.76% which is fresh and can be used, while 0.93% is saline. There's also a lot of water trapped in the soil. Of course, this is something which you will not be able to use. You cannot extract water from the soil, and this is a very minuscule percentage, which is only 0.01%. But if you think about it, that's also 16,500 cubic kilometers of water. Then there's also ground ice and permafrost. Again, we are trying our best to melt this with our global warming, but this is again 0.022%. Then there is this water which is available to us, which is in the lakes, which form 0.13% of your total water available on this planet, from which fresh water is 0.07%, which you can easily use and which is being used throughout the world. Most of our water come from rivers and lakes. Then there is saline water again, which is trapped in salty lakes like the Caspian Sea and all those things. Then there's a lot of water trapped in the atmosphere, the water vapor, the humidity, that is 0.01%. 12,900 cubic kilometers of water is not a small number. Then swamp water, which is something which again we cannot use because it's almost like as bad as seawater. This is 0.0008%. Then rivers we have, which is 0.0002%. This is what we rely on for our fresh water. And the biological water, which is trapped in your body, my body, every creature that you see, that is 0.0001%. So that's a breakup of all the water that we have on this planet. So now you can see that 96.54% is gone. Your saline lakes are gone. Your groundwater saline is gone. So whatever is left is what you have as fresh water. And that's the reason why people ask you to save water. Now let's see further distribution in this. As we saw that we just have around 0.03% water left for us. So the fresh water is a renewable resource. It rains, it goes back into the atmosphere, it forms water vapor, goes into the clouds, you have the rain happening, but we'll talk about that later, going to the water cycle as well. So that's a renewable resource, and yet the world supply of clean fresh water is steadily decreasing. Wherever we have water going into the ground, we have been filling it up with nice tarred roads or concretized paved areas. So you're not even allowing the fresh water to go into the earth, and you're just letting it flow away into the oceans. And so you're turning fresh water into salt water all the time. So that is constantly decreasing. The water demand already exceeds supply in many parts of the world. And as the world population continues to rise, this is also something which we'll be seeing ahead, that what is the impact of the population rising and the lifestyle which we live impacting our waters. So the awareness of global importance of preserving water for ecosystem services has only recently emerged, as during the 20th century, more than half the world's population have already been lost along with their valuable environmental services. So a lot of biodiversity is also being lost as we lose a lot of fresh water. So yeah, these are some facts I'll talk out to you about. The total water on Earth, of course, we spoke, is 1.4 billion cubic kilometers. The total renewable water falling on land each year is only 41,000 cubic kilometers. This is the rain that we get. Let's compare it with the population. The world population in 1955 was 2.8 billion people. In 1990, it became 5.3 billion people. In 2013, it was 7.2 billion people. Today, in the year 2020, it is 7.8 billion people and constantly increasing as we speak. And the world population is projected by 2025 to reach 8.1 billion to 9.1 billion people. Can you imagine so many mouths to feed, so many throats to quench thirsts? That's going to be a huge number, but the water, it's remaining the same or reducing. As I said, the fresh water is also reducing on this planet. So there are some more devastating facts which I would like to point out to you for now. First one is that 1.1 billion people lack access to safe drinking water on this planet. That is the 1/6 population of the whole planet. And 2.4 billion people lack safe sanitation. That's the 40% population of this planet. They do not have safe sanitation facilities. There are 6,000 children dying every day from diseases associated with unsafe water, sanitation, and hygiene. Such a sad state that 6,000 children is a big number every day. More than 2.2 million die each year from diseases associated with poor water and sanitation. Women and girls are the most affected when it comes to the lack of sanitation facilities. Unsafe water and sanitation leads to 80% of all the diseases in the developing countries. Of course, leaving aside COVID-19, which is the biggest scare right now, but there are so many other diseases, so many other ailments which are caused due to unsafe water. 80% of all the diseases ever known to man. In developing countries, 90% of wastewater is discharged without treatment, thus contaminating the earth, and the pollution is tremendous in the earth, which affects the biodiversity and the organisms living in that. Loss of water through leakages, illegal hookups, and waste is about 50% of water for drinking and 60% of water for irrigation in developing countries. Further in this slideshow, in this presentation, we will be talking about how water is lost and how much is lost in detail. One flush of a Western toilet uses as much water as the average person in the developing world uses for a whole day's washing, cooking, cleaning, and drinking. Can you imagine? There are countries where an average person uses up to 15 or 20 liters per day, which is just one flush for a Westerner. Over 20% species of flora and fauna from the freshwater ecosystem are now extinct. You will never see them again, nor your children. So yeah, coming to the water cycle we were talking about, the natural water cycle. This is something which is a very simple high school thing which we learned. But what I'm trying to draw attention here is the evaporation rates from the ocean is the same. The condensation rate is probably reduced because of the global warming, the clouds and water vapor, the precipitation which happens on this planet is affected mostly. Why? Because as I some time back said that we just want everything to be smooth, right? We want the roads to be smooth, no potholes, no khadda. Gaadi chale to khadda nahi aana chahiye, bhai, rasta saaf hona chahiye. Even if there is one, we are going to make a huge fuss about it. Our buildings, our compounds, our surroundings all need to be paved very smoothly. So where is the water going to go in from? How is it going to go into the earth? What we are seeing here on the left side, the infiltration, the percolation, which is going into the water table, we are most of the times letting it just go into the ocean or go into the rivers. Rivers, yes, this is where we can draw our water from, right? But we will talk about the rivers also further, what we are doing with our rivers, right? We all know, I think you guys get a hint what I'm talking about. So yeah, let's go ahead. So what are the dimensions of water conservation? It's like a three gears which fit into each other perfectly well and make this water conservation a reality coming true. So you need to know about resource conservation. How do you conserve the resources? How do you make sure that your resources are safe? How do you conserve on your usage is one more cog in the wheel. And then the biggest gear which I have shown here is the preservation technologies and techniques. So we will be touching upon these factors also while we go ahead in this session. But then let's jump back into history. As I said, as I promised you right in the start, that we will be talking about the historical factors of Asia and our country. So here, what I'm talking about is Asia is in 200 or 100 BCE. The ancient Chinese, of course, these days I know there's a lot of anti-China sentiment, but when we're talking about Asia, India, China, we have all these countries coming in. So clean water was known to be important in disease prevention. So wells were covered, devices were used to filter water, and there used to be something known as the Chi Shi, the sanitary police, which made sure that these water bodies were never contaminated or polluted with any kind of animal or human corpses from waterways, and they were buried away from the land. Talking about finding water corpses in finding human corpses, I'm sorry, finding human corpses in water bodies is something we are very well aware of, right? let's move on. So even when we go back to Japan, during the Jomon period, settlements were built in horseshoe shape, with a central plaza in the middle and garbage heaps around the settlements. In these garbage heaps, calcified fecal remains of humans or dogs, which are known as coprolites, you can look it up, even I had to look it up a bit, were found, indicating that these garbage dumps were also used as toilets and they had a proper sanitary feature. The earliest sewer systems are from the Yayoi period. These systems were used in larger settlements, probably in combination with toilets. But this is something which we are talking about, the 300 BC or up to 250 AD. So this was like probably 2,500 years ago. Moving on, let's not dwell too much deep into Asian history, but this image, what we are seeing here right now, is the older version of the toilet roll. Yes, exactly. I had the same thought when I saw this, that how were people using this instead of toilet paper? Chalo, theek hai. I know in India we are not very much fond of using a toilet paper, but at least I wonder the fate of the people who are using these things as instead of toilet paper. These are known as washi. So yeah, it sounds scary. It also looks very abrasive. So anyways, often toilets were also constructed over running streams in Japan. And one of the first known flushing toilets was found in an Akita castle dating back to the 8th century. That's something really astonishing, right? So yeah, historically we've also found pit toilets very common, that were built and allowed to reuse the feces as fertilizers also, and especially in a country where Buddhism was very rampant and vegetarianism was also very precedent. Here's a funny fact which I just missed out. The last sentence here says that the waste products of rich people were actually sold at higher prices because their diet was better. So can you think about it? The fertilizer generated by the rich people was also rich when it comes to that. Okay, moving on. I think we don't want to get too much into this. Let's come to India. So this is a place, Dholavira, which I'm going to talk about. This is very close to my native place in Kutch. That's where I really originate from. Though I'm the third generation living in Mumbai now, but yeah, Dholavira comes in Kutch, which is a part of Gujarat. It is, even as of date, it is situated 140 kilometers from the nearest inhabitation. It is on the island of Khadir in the Great Run of Kutch. That's this place, Dholavira. Even today, when I went there a few years ago, getting there was a real challenge. The guy who was driving me there, he was like, "Are you sure you want to go here? This place is like in the middle of nowhere. What are you going to do there? It's crazy, and there's no water in between. There's no inhabitation." But since I wanted to go there, I made sure I did. So this place is a biggest witness to the advancements which have been achieved by a man about 5,000 years ago. Unbelievable. So even today, as I said, Dholavira is located in an area of around 200 acres on an island. This island is not surrounded by water. You may think that island is usually in the middle of water, and whenever you picturize an island, you think, wow, beautiful tropical island, coconut trees, nice greenery and all that. But this is not surrounded by water. It's surrounded by salty marshes, right in the middle of the Great Run of Kutch, where no man would ever conceive the idea of inhabitation. That's where Dholavira is. Here, even today, the price of water is considered at gold's value. So it's unbelievable to imagine that people actually lived here. So yeah, that raises a big question. Who were the people who actually lived here and why here of all the places? Well, this image explains it all, right? So there's no points for guessing that these were indeed the Harappans who were living here. The architecture, planning, and archaeological carbon analysis dates back to the Harappan period. In other words, it resembles exactly like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. We heard about Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which currently is in Pakistan, but this is something which is very well in India and you can visit it. So it had a citadel right in the middle. It had a lower town. It had a very well preserved stone houses. So just like, Harappa, but in Harappa they had more vulnerable bricks which crumbled over the years. But if you visit Dholavira today, you will find it much more preserved because the stone that they have used. The city probably was like a stopover for trade or even a fort protecting sea trade with Oman, Mesopotamia. This was Mesopotamia. I think most of us who watch a lot of Discovery or Nat Geo will know that this was a rich civilization in present day Iraq. Of course, today Iraq is in a very bad state, but Mesopotamia was once a huge civilization, and the Persian Gulf and far off land. So it would protect that. Salt, of course, could have been the commodity which they traded in, but this is something which is not really known. There was a lot of trade which used to take place, and this was probably even a route for the Silk. This was also one of the routes which was a part of the Silk Route. So all that's known is that these people worship the forces of nature like fire, wind, trees, water. There you go, water, right? So they had proper entertainment facilities also. They had playgrounds, and they were ruled and organized by a ruler who made sure that everything was well built and maintained. Again, we come back to a question. It says, but how did they flourish in such formidable conditions for over a millennium? They actually lived there for about hundreds of years. So how did they prosper there? The answer is simple. It's water management. Again, we have a question, right? I see a lot of scratchy heads here. What kind of water management? For that, let's have a very aerial view and see what the water supply was at the town level. So here in this image, what you can see is the citadel where the ruler lived. You have an upper town where the royalty, the ministers, the administrators lived, and it was separated by a playground where many public entertainment things used to take place. Then you had the middle town where the semi-rich people lived, and you had the lower town where the common people lived. Here, what you see is a small rivulet, which was probably of the Saraswati River, which would be the best during monsoon, that would flow into the small town of Dolavira. Then water would flow through these huge tanks. As you can see, there are peripherally huge tanks from which it would be supplied to the city, filling public baths, recharging wells, and other resources. So you can imagine in such a place, they even had public baths. We've heard that in Greece they used to have public baths. Who does not know about the Eureka story, right? Then the water was supplied to the citadel, and it was overflowing back out. So the city was built in a semi-arid region, averaging only about 260 rainfall annually. Talking about rainfall, it has just started raining here in Mumbai. So yeah, quite a coincidence, right? So this place barely used to get any rainfall. Two stormwater channels, the one which we saw, Manhar and Mansar, bordered the city. The city was laid out about at a gradient of 13 meters. It had a slope of 13 meters in the east-west direction and a perfect planning for reservoirs. They made a series of around 16 to 18 reservoirs. Can you believe that? 16 to 18 reservoirs 5,000 years ago, with the kind of tools that they had, no power tools, no drill machines, no excavators. They made these. So they were made between the inner and outer walls of the city to collect the monsoon runoff from the channels. See, this is one of the reservoirs, one of those 16 to 18 reservoirs. That's huge. So this itself is pretty big enough to suffice a town of today. It is about 23 feet deep. The reservoir has 32 equal steps made of stone leading down to the bottom on both the sides. Many reservoirs like this one had a well also integrated within them. I'll show that to you also very soon. Thus recharging the water table below the ground and assuring water supply around the year. So as we saw in the earlier slide, that the water on this river would be the maximum only in monsoon, but in the dry season, you probably could not get anything from there. So you had to recharge the groundwater as well. In other cases, reservoirs would recharge wells in the town, which you will see further as I spoke about. And the wonder of wonders, even today, is that the well is still filled with water today, even if you visit that place after 5 millennium have passed. And that too fresh water where salty is expected. So yeah, it's a wonder in itself, a natural wonder. So here what you can see is um, the trenches which have been made for water supply. Today, when you see around, you will see trenches are for drains, for collecting the rainwater and disposing it off. So as everyone here would agree, after water has been accumulated, what comes into picture is the distribution part. You just have collected water. What difference does it make? You could probably pick a bucket, go walk, which happens even today in many parts of the world, that people have to walk around 5 to 10 kilometers to go and collect the water. But not here. No. This place had its own distribution network. So needless to say, in 2600 BC, there were no piping material, at least not known to man that you could sculpt copper or turn it into pipe. So probably the only known metal was copper, which was still not used to make pipes. In fact, only of late it is being used by us, right? In recent times, we come to use copper piping for our water supply. So numerous and huge drain for supplying rainwater have been unearthed at the site of Dholavira since 1989. Even today, the archaeological survey is carrying out some excavation, and they keep finding new things every other day. So, on the contrary to what was initially believed by the Archaeological Survey of India, these drains were not used for draining utilities, but these drains were used for supplying and transporting water to one utility to another. So, in this lower image which um, you can see the trough has been made in such a way that the water comes out in a proper flow. I'm sorry if there's a lot of disturbance in my audio right now, but it has actually started raining heavily, and that's what you're probably hearing. So shown here is another typical water supply drain which further went to connect to a house tenement. So every house would have an outlet and the drain would further flow. So presently the drain has been supported and protected with cement concrete mortar by the archaeological survey people, but it did stand there for at least 5,000 years to so that we could see it today. And here are a few more drains and tanks to collect water from within the city. So eventually, every zone the trench would supply water to, it would, after that zone, a new zone would have a small tank, and the water would fill in that tank, overflow, and go through the trench into other zones. So here is what we can look. Here is what we can see. What the royalty enjoyed in the citadel. In the citadel, they had their own swimming pool. Can you believe the king had a swimming pool inside? Wow. So now that we have been talking about a whole city, what happens in the worst of summers, at least in this kind of a place in the middle of a marshy land? So there they used to have wells. As I said, the wells were found within reservoirs as well. Of course, this is one of those dry wells where not much water is, but they've also made provisions for trenches and smaller tanks to collect water, so the summers would not be very difficult for them there. Further, today when we talk a lot about rainwater collection and we say rainwater harvesting, we should harvest the rainwater. This was done 5,000 years ago. Here you can see from one of those small ponds, there's an outlet given to go into the earth. The water just percolates into the earth and is collected. So thus advanced were the Dolavirans in what we call as the Stone Age or Dark Ages, of which we hardly read about in our history books. So what really happened to them? Where are they now? Where did they vanish? So by the end of 1750 BC, there was nothing left of Dholavira. There are three probabilities given to the sudden disappearances to the city. When I interacted with the people there from the Archaeological Survey of India, these were the three possibilities that they came up with. The very first one is that by the end of 1750 BC, Mesopotamia, Iraq, which we know as today, was war torn, and there was hardly any trade possible with the countries. So Dholavira basically faced a financial crunch. Hence, a once flourishing and self-sufficient city got poor and moved away from the harsh conditions. It was really difficult to survive. So they moved on. I'm sure many people uh, associate with that even today. The second possibility is that it is believed that the Aryans who had migrated somewhere from Germany, this is a belief, right? Many people today, many historians claim that this never happened. Many religious people take it offensive. But I request, this is a disclaimer that I'm not a religiously bound person, but this is what has been told to me by the Archaeological Survey of India. It is believed that the Aryans who had ingressed into India, led a massive invasion and parasited over Dholavira till nothing was left, though no evidence of any war or ambush has yet been found there. So that probably rules out the possibility that Aryans invaded this. And the third possibility is that the whole area was damaged and devastated by a massive earthquake like the one which rocked Kutch in 2000. We know that Kutch faces a lot of earthquakes. And so further to which it is believed that the course of river Saraswati changed and that it went underground and still flows underground, leaving the Dholavirans totally parched and dry in the middle of the run. So I like to believe the third one is the more accurate one, where they eventually ran out of water. They could not get any more water and had to just move on. Going back to global history, talking about global history, we spoke about public baths, and we all know that in Greece you had all these public baths, and they had a very good water facility there. So just talking about that, we there has been found in the mid second millennium BC a palace complex at Knossos, Crete, and the luxurious alabaster bathtubs were excavated at Akrotiri, Santorini. Santorini is a very popular tourist destination, but there have been all these places found where they had these wonderful facilities using water. In fact, you would be surprised to know when we use the word gymnasium, the word gymnos comes from Greece, and I will be talking more on that a little ahead. So the Greeks established public baths and showers within gymnasiums for relaxation and personal hygiene. As I said, the word gymnasium comes from the Greek word gymnos, means getting naked or being nude. So, of course, in a public bath, you would not wear a lot of clothes to take a bath. And that's where the word gymnasium came into the picture. Ancient Rome also developed a network of aqueducts to supply water to all towns and population centers. So even when you're traveling through Italy today or through some French places, you will be able to appreciate and see these aqueducts available. But this is something which we are talking about the second millennium or something like that, not exactly 5,000 years ago. So in the Middle Ages, bathing commonly took place in public bath houses. Rich people bathed at home, often in their bedroom, as bathrooms were not very common. People did not have their own bathrooms. You had to go out and use a public bath. Even in India, of course, we did not really have a concept of having a bathroom or a toilet inside the house, or even for that matter, outside the house. I'm sure many people associate with the fact that a wonderful movie was made, Toilet, a Prem Katha, that said that we did not even have toilets. So bathing was usually done in large wooden bathtubs in Europe. Additionally, during the Renaissance, the French Renaissance, the quality and condition of the clothing as opposed to the actual cleanliness of the body itself were thought to reflect the soul of an individual. You could have been terrible hygienically inside, but the clothes that you were wearing had to be rich, and that's what indicated your personal hygiene, unlike what we think today. So, clean clothing also reflected one's social status. Clothes made the man or the woman. I'm sure many clothing companies today will talk about, uh, you know, your suit makes you a man or whatever. I'm sure you've seen all those commercial advertisements which come on TV. In fact, I was just having a discussion with Mr. Dhanashekaran a few days ago, and he was advising that even the clothes that we wear today, the amount of water that is consumed to generate the fabric that you use is also tremendous. So that's something you need to be wary about. If you're fond of buying a lot of new clothes, hey, you're using a lot of water there. But then we'll come to that again. We'll talk about that further also in the session. So eventually, as I said, that clothes made a man, and this thought process dwelled deep into people. So this did away, people just started using cleaning basically the parts of the body that were visible to the public. For example, only the ears, hands and feet, and face and neck. I still know some people who do not like to take a bath and do this today as well. So this did away with the public baths and left the cleaning of oneself to the privacy of one's home. So, they would just clean up a little bit, whatever they needed, and moved on. But then what? The switch eventually moved on from woolen clothing to linen clothing by the 16th century, which was also accompanied by the decline in further bathing. So linen clothing was, of course, much easier to clean and maintain, and as such, clothing was becoming uh, commonplace at the time in Western Europe. So clean linen shirts or blouses allowed people who had not bathed to appear clean and well groomed. So you could have not taken a bath for a week, for 10 days, but you wear nice clean clothes, you're good. The possession of large quantity of clean linen clothing was a sign of social status. So the more linen clothing you had, you were a rich person. So thus appearance became more important than personal hygiene. Medical opinion supported this claim. Can you believe that? The doctors also said if you're wearing clean clothes, you're good. Physicians of the period believed that odors, such as that which would be found in soiled linens, caused diseases. So that was something really strange, right? If you have bad clothes, you will fall sick. Not necessary that you have to take a bath. So a person could therefore change one's shirt every few days, but avoid baths, which might lead the bad air into the body through the pores. So consequently, in an age in which there were very few personal bathtubs, laundry was an important and very weekly chore that very commonly undertaken by the laundress at the time. Of course, today when we are also locked in our houses, we have learned to do the laundry, right? Here's a nice little poster I found on the internet of Pure Soap and how they used to publicize about soaps, which we are also coming ahead to. So public opinion about bathing began to shift in the late 18th century. Can you believe that the Western world till the 18th century did not even believe so much about bathing? So when writers argued that the frequency of bathing might lead to better health, the germ theory of disease led health authorities to urge people to bathe regularly. Can you imagine? They had to urge people to take a bath regularly to get rid of the harmful germs. Before the 19th century, water to individual places of residence was rare. 5,000 years ago, we had a place known as Dolavira, and here we are talking about a place in Europe that before the 19th century, water to individual places of residence was rare. While Dolavira, every house used to have running water. So many countries in Europe developed a water collection and distribution network eventually in the 18th century. The weekly Saturday night bath. There's also a term we speak about in Hindi. We call it Jumme ke Jumme Nahana. So Jumme ke Jumme term comes from there, taking a bath every Friday, or in the Western world the concept of having half day Saturday and a holiday on Sunday came from here. The weekly Saturday night bath was common in Christian industrialized lands in the 19th and early 20th century. So please do not misquote me or misunderstand me. I'm not trying to target any religious audience here, but it's basically the kind of geographical impact I'm talking about. So a half day's work on Saturday was the norm for the factory workers so that they could go home, have some leisure and prepare for the Sunday of rest. But the half day allowed them time for the considerable amount of labor which was required in drawing, carrying and heating water, filling the bath and then afterwards emptying it. So they used to practically have to go collect water, heat it, take a bath. And imagine having a family of 4 to 5 people. Then there was nothing like a population control idea, right? So what would happen is the biggest member, the most influential member in the family was the first person who would get to bathe in that water. So to economize, the bath water was shared by all the family members. So precedence in the bath order could lead to contention since the first user enjoyed the cleanest and the warmest water, and the last user usually the little baby, would get the dirtiest water. And hence there is a term, there is a statement in English which says that don't throw the baby out with the bath water because the water would be so murky by the end that you would not even realize that a baby is inside it. Of course, the real meaning of that statement today, it says, is that don't throw away something very valuable in with things that you don't need. So that's what the real contention today is. Eventually, the indoor plumbing became more common at the start of the 20th century. What you can see here is a poster of a Kohler bathroom where they would try to glamorize it. In India, also we've heard terms like companies using terms like glamour rooms. So everybody tried to glamorize on the fact that a bathroom was a glamorous thing. You could spend more time in the bathroom and be hygienic. So as I said, there were commercial advertising campaigns pushing new bath products. which began to influence public ideas about cleanliness and promoting the idea of a daily shower or bath. So imagine people used to take a bath once in a week. They started taking a bath 7 times. So that was 7 times more consumption of water. You get my point here. So that's going from a weekly bath to a daily bath. As I said, that's 7x more consumption. So the population of the world in the 1930s was 2 billion, something of that sort, and the population of the world in 2020 today is 7.8 billion, while the population of India in 1930s was something around 277 million, and the population of India in 2020 actually, oh, this is 2015, this is wrong. In 2020 it has increased tremendously. So that was the population of the world increased 2.8 times, while the population of India increased 4.9 times as compared to 1930s. So that's 7 times more water to 4.9 times more people. So that means we need more than 34 times more water as compared to the past. Just imagine the amount of water that was used in the past in the 1930s just went 34 times more than it was required in the past. So this is what we typically look at when you talk about the urban water usage per individual. This is typically what happens in our houses today. We use 8 liters for drinking. That's what usually is recommended. We use around 5 liters of water for cooking, around 50 liters for bathing, 25 liters for clothes washing, 10 liters roughly around for pot or utensil wash. Pot or utensil wash is dependent on the bai that you have in your house many a times. Of course, again, in this time of Corona, the bai is a luxury which not most of us can afford. But it has been a very common observation that you cannot ask a bai to shut off the tap to wash the utensils, because if you do, your wife or the lady of the house is eventually going to ask you to do the pot wash because the bai will leave. So eventually it melts down to that roughly 10 liter is wasted in that. Then you have for other domestic cleaning, you use around 10 liters. For flushing, 45 liters. So if overall, water that is required per individual per day is around 153 liters. But wait, did we consider about leaks? This is the water which is required per individual. But when it comes to your places, until it reaches your place, within your premises, there are leaks happening at times. And when unattended, this 153 can go exponentially high. Let's see what happens about leakages. So as per the Independent, which is a very famous news bulletin and a newspaper in the UK, it says that 3.3 billion liters of water is lost in UK only through leakages. Moving to other countries, let's see. Estimated water loss from leaking pipelines in Boston in 1977 was 50%. More recently, leakages after leak detection initiatives have been taken, it has come down to 36%. But imagine 36% of water supplied to the whole city is lost in leakages. In California, it is 81 billion gallons per year. In Canadian supply systems, it is 10 to as high as 30%. The Canadian drinking water is also as high as 30%, and some municipalities lose up to 60% to leakages. Moving on from Canada, let's go to Damascus. They have around 30%. In Italy, there's around 40% leakages. And that importantly to note is that many of the pipelines date as back as 1920s. So there you go. In South Africa, 12.5% water is lost. That's pretty less as compared to many other places. In London, around 50% is lost. In Philippines, Manila, 55% leaks and a lot of unlawful use. In Mexico City, 1999, which was the last update, 32% was being lost. In Montreal, Canada, 40% is lost due to leakages. So back to Canada. New York City, which is still doing better, only 10% is lost to leakages. In Norway, around 50%. Again, UK, 32 million liters per day in Portsmouth. In Norway, around 50 to 70%. In Seoul, Korea, 35%. Leakages, unbelievable, right? So much water is being lost. In Ukraine, 30%. Um, let's just skip US now, move on to Vietnam. 50% is lost. So wow, it's unbelievable. We lost so much water just to leakage. Lost fresh, treated, usable water for human consumption lost due to leakages. As per the Asian Development Bank's report, around 29 billion cubic meters of urban treated water is lost to leaks in Asia alone. 29 billion cubic meters of all the water that we saw, of all the treated fresh water, we are losing just in Asia alone, with two most populous countries. So what is being done to curtail that? How can that be curtailed? So in Singapore, this was a case study I did. They have developed a prototype network with 25 sensor packages that report in real time on the water pressure that is available, the flow rate, and the disinfectant levels, which have been installed in the Singapore CBD, the Central Business District, in all the pipe distribution network. So this is a tie-up which they have done with the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So these sensors, which include acoustic hydrophones, extend about 10 centimeters into the distribution pipes of at least 20 centimeter in diameter. The sensors measure water pressure, water flow, the conductivity, the pH, is it acidic, alkaline, and the oxidation reduction potential, thus showing that can it how easily can it be infected by microorganisms, how can it be contaminated. So this is taken care. The transient changes in pressure, for example, caused by a leak or a burst pipe, arrive at and are sent from different sensors at different times depending on the sensor location. So the moment there is a leakage, one of these sensors will immediately send out a signal that the pressure has changed, and a central computer receives the automatic reports from the sensors via the 3G network. I'm sure it has been now upgraded to 4G. And the computer then integrates all the real-time hydraulic data in a model of the water distribution system software from the which has been obtained from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So this is something which we can aspire to do in the future in our cities as well, having such kind of sensors in our water distribution networks. So this is, as I just told you, the PUB and MIT have developed this, and they're also trying to implement a low-cost system in collaboration with the Center for Environment Sensing and Modeling as part of their alliance. So they're also implementing solar panels for street lighting systems. Of course, this is something which we are not very much concerned when we are talking about water. But what we are seeing here in this image is an emulated burst leak shown from a fire hydrant, and the sensors detecting it and sending real-time data for to the computer system to maintain it. So the deviations in the quality of the water are detected, which we just saw in the earlier slide. So that's basically what can be done as well. Yeah, so this is how we further waste water, right? You see there's a car wash happening, there's a bucket lying on the side, but still a hose is being used. What you can see here is gardening, the lawn being watered by a sprinkler which has been placed in a very wrong manner. Half of the water is going onto the pavement. Here you see a kitchen faucet dripping because of a faulty washer which has not been replaced. So that's where we're leaking water, right? So let's come back to the important topic. Just to put it in a little mathematical formula, a leak of only 1 liter per minute corresponds to more than 5 lakh 10,000 liters per year. Unbelievable, right? Just 1 liter per minute. A leak of only 1 drop per second represents a water loss of 10,000 liters per year. You might think in your house that if your tap is dripping, क्या है, एक एक बूंद गिर रहा है ना, क्या फर्क पड़ जाता है? But that's 10,000 liters of water per year. A water loss greater than 150 gallons per minute can result from a 1-inch diameter hole at a pressure of 40 pounds per square inches. So, wow, that's a huge loss. The potential negative effects of corroded or leaking water is not only the loss of water, there's much more to it. There's an increased risk of contaminating the water supply and resulting diseases. The impaired water quality can be seen red or rusty water from internal corrosions. It also causes reduced hydraulic capacity, internal corrosion products. It's like basically in your heart, one of your arteries gets clogged. So eventually your pump, the heart faces issues to pump out the water, the blood. So here it's exactly the same thing. It has a reduced hydraulic capacity, thus making it energy inefficient. Your pumps are working harder to push the water. There's also increased cost and effort of water treatment. You need to make it usable again. Isolation of a leak location for repair operations can lead to increased pressure in other parts of the system, because if you shut down a particular zone, your pumping systems have been designed in such a way that the water is going to cater to all the zones. So to repair, you would have to shut down the zone. That would increase pressures in some other areas, with possibly additional costly leaks resulting from the rising pressure, especially in older systems in cities like Mumbai, where we still have some British era water supply systems. So that's a risk you would not like to take. The loss of water also, after costs for its procurement, treatment, and pressurization have already been incurred. There's a lost revenue for system operators. There's higher costs for system users, the water vulnerability and shortage, and property damage. For example, sinkholes and flooding have resulted from water leakages. I'm sure a lot of people, many of us see videos coming to us on WhatsApp or social media where we see sinkholes suddenly appearing out of nowhere in the cities. That's because of that. And then, of course, there can be a lot of legal issues and you would have an exposure to litigation. So who really owns our waters? Reminding of that, I need a sip of water. So yeah, coming back, who really owns our waters? Water is abundant throughout the planet. Do you think somebody owns it? Yes, of course. So this is something which I found on US the the litigation. It's a documentation, a legal documentation, which elicits who really owns the water, how it says. So there is now an informal international human rights law, an acknowledged human right to water and sanitation. On July 28, 2010, following many years of discussion, debate, and negotiation, 122 countries formally acknowledged the right to water in a General Assembly resolution, which was a UN resolution. 2 months later, on September 24, 2010, the UN Human Rights Council adopted a building resolution recognizing that the human right to water and sanitation are a part of the right to adequate standard of living. While now recognized in international law, the human right to water is not enforceable at a national level until incorporated into a national legislation. So the resolution in part says that affirms that human right to safe drinking water and sanitation is derived from the right to an adequate standard of living and inextricably related to the right to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, as well as the right to life and human dignity. So what it tries to say is that every human has a right to safe drinking water and sanitation. But then again, there are many laws, many situations, many states, many countries fighting over water. For example, let's start with where we are, Punjab and Haryana. I'm sure you guys know about that. Then there are situations where we all know that the Kaveri water is being fought upon. We of course have our friendly neighborhood Pakistan fighting with us most of the times for the water. So there are a lot of these kind of situations where fights have occurred over water between countries, between cities, between states, that who owns the water really. So let's talk about watersheds, because the watersheds are what we usually fight upon. What is really a watershed? A watershed is a geographical area in which water, sediments, and dissolved materials drain into a common outlet. You might get all the rainwater, everything coming in, and it flows into a river or your underground water flow, underground stream. So this is something which is a watershed, and many people fight over the watershed. So a common outlet, a larger stream, a lake, an underlying aquifer, as I said. So it's basically everybody lives in a watershed and everybody wants rights, equal rights, or more rights over the water in the watershed. So yeah, talking about the rights, as I said, there are some rights about the water which are land-based, So some water rights are based on the land ownership. So for example, if I have a particular piece of land and in that there is a pond, or if there is a natural reservoir or a lake, it becomes my right to that water body. For example, many common law jurisdictions recognize riparian rights, which are protected by property law. So riparian rights, which are applicable to the US, state that only the owner of the banks of the water source have a right to undiminished, unaltered flow of the water. So I could have a piece of land along a river. So that's what it talks about. Then there is a right which is community based. So in some jurisdictions, water rights are granted directly to communities, and water is reserved to provide sufficient capacity for the future growth of that particular community. So for example, let's not talk about the US, let's just talk about a situation in India. In India, say for example, there's a township coming up somewhere in Chandigarh or in Punjab, and the water resource ministry or the water resource department or the urban local body says that this particular pond or the water flowing from this river is applicable for this township, and you can take this water. So that's what we are talking about. Then there is a use-based right, which does not relate to land and instead relies on whether the water user has legal access to the water source. Typically, this use right is based on navigability or prior use. As a general rule, use-based rights are user usufructuary and fully transferable to anyone. We've heard also in the past that in India there are situations where you know the higher caste has a particular right on a water and a lower caste does not have a particular right on a well. There was a very beautiful movie which I saw recently known as Jal. I think it's on one of the streaming platforms. This story is also based in Kutch again, and there it's about two communities. One village which does not have any water source, while the other village has a well, and how a fight erupts between these communities trying to get rights to that well or trying to get water. So it's definitely worth a watch when you have time. Then there are prior appropriation rights, which is more dedicated to the US, and it's also called the Colorado Doctrine, which I will skip right now, which is not really relevant to us particularly. So yeah, talking about fights for water, is water the next oil? Uh, our a wonderful human being, the best president our country has had, Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, he had quoted once that if there is a World War III again ever, it will be for water. So here, what in this pictorial I'm trying to show is that the world is pretty much distributed unequally when it comes to water. There are some countries which have a lot of water available, while there are some countries which are extremely water starved. If you see on the right side the world map, you will see that how the water distribution has changed over the years. In the 70s, we had a good quantity of water. India used to come in the green zone, but eventually by 2003 uh, we reached in an orange situation, and by 2025 we are going to look at a past populace. So basically, if you see the color graphs, you will see that countries, there are very few countries which will have more than 20% of water. There will be some countries which will have 10 to 20%, but majority, if you see India and a lot of surrounding countries, are under 1%. So that's very alarming for us. What is also really saddening, coming back, if you see on the top, there's a gray world map, which indicates the what do you call it, as the aquifers which have been lying unused since many years, since thousands of years. There's the Guarani aquifer and the Nubian sandstone aquifer. They have been lying in the earth many years untouched, but today, people have reached that deep and have started using that water as well. So that's sad about that. So yeah, my eventually coming to the outcome of what we saw till now is that we will never know the worth of water till the well is really dry. This is a photograph from one place in India where water scarcity is rampant. I'd like to show this presentation. This is a presentation from a public domain. I found it on a public domain, so it's not really mine, but it moved me. It has literally squeezed my heart. And this presentation is known as Letter from My Great Grandson. It's basically like, my great grandson in the future, if he could send me a message back today, this is what he would send. So I'll just read it out for you as we move on. My great grandpa, this is the year 2070. I have just turned 50, but my appearance is of somebody of 85. I suffer from serious kidney problems because I do not drink enough water. I am afraid I do not have much time left to live. I am one of the oldest people in this society at the age of 50. Yeah? I remember when I was a child of 5, everything was different then. There were lots of trees in the parks, houses with beautiful gardens, and I could enjoy having a shower for half an hour. Yes, people do that, right? Take a shower for half an hour. Nowadays, we use towels with mineral oil to clean our skin. Before, women had beautiful hair. Now we have to shave our heads to keep them clean without the use of water. Then, my father, your grandson, washed his car with water coming out of a hose pipe. Now, my son does not believe that water could be wasted that way. I remember there were save water warnings on outside posters like the one you had made, radio and TV, but nobody paid attention. We thought that water was to last forever. Now all the rivers, lakes, dams, and underground water beds are either dry or contaminated. Industry came virtually to a standstill and unemployment reached dramatic proportions. Desalination plants are the main source of employment, and workers receive part of their salary in drinkable water. Assaults at gunpoint on the streets for a jerry can of water are very common. Food is 80% synthetic. Before, the recommended quantity of water to drink for an adult was 8 glasses a day. Nowadays, I'm only allowed half a glass. Now we will have to wear disposable clothing, and this increases the amount of litter. We are now using septic tanks because the sewage system does not work for lack of water. The outside appearance of the population is horrible: wrinkled, emaciated bodies due to hydration, full of sores caused by ultraviolet radiation, now stronger without the protective shield of the ozone layer. Skin cancer, gastrointestinal infections, and of the urinary tracts are the main causes of death. Due to the excessive drying of the skin, young people of 20 look like 40. Scientists investigate, but there is no solution to the problem. Water cannot be produced. Oxygen is also degraded due to the lack of trees and vegetation, and the intellectual capacity of the new generations is severely impaired. The morphology of spermatozoa in many men has changed. As a consequence, babies are born with deficiencies, mutations, and physical deformities. Government makes us pay for the air we breathe, 137 meter cube per day per adult person. People who cannot pay are expelled from the ventilated zones with huge mechanical lungs driven by solar power. The air is not of good quality, but at least people can breathe. The average life expectancy is 35 years. In some countries where there are still some green zones crossed by rivers, they are guarded by heavy armed soldiers. Water became a very coveted treasure, more precious than gold and diamonds. Where I live, there are no trees because it seldom rains. When it happens to register some precipitation, it is of acid rain. The seasons have been severely affected by the atomic tests and by contamination from the 20th century polluting industries. We were warned to look after the environment, but nobody cared. When my son asks me to talk about my youth, I tell him about the green fields, the beauty of the flowers, the rain, how pleasant was to swim and fish in the rivers and dams and to drink all the water we could, and how healthy people were. He asks, Daddy, why there is no water?
this transition that the government level saw over the past 2 years have been seen to go all wrong.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Daiya sir, you go ahead. No problem.
Okay, sorry. Then I feel a lump in my throat. I cannot help feeling guilty because I belong to the generation who contributed to the destruction of the environment or simply did not take into account all the warning signs. Now our children pay a very heavy price. I sincerely believe that within a short time, life on Earth will not be possible as the destruction of nature reached now an irreversible stage. How I would like to go back and make mankind understand that we still had time to save our planet Earth. So yeah, it's quite devastating to think about this. But yeah, still time is not lost. We are still in 2020, the year which will probably change things for people in the future. So how do we do that? We'll talk about low flow devices. Ouch. Okay. Yeah, that's a good animation, right? I didn't want you guys to miss that. So we're talking
Daiya
about
sir,
low flow
Daiya sir,
devices.
we just have to rush.
Yes. I'm just like 10 minutes away.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. So we're talking about low flow devices, which says conservation that goes a long way. So what are low flow devices really? Low flow devices are such devices which offer an individual the pleasure of conventional water devices like faucets, showers, or water closets while functioning at a much lower requirement and offering similar or better experiences. So you consume less of water, but you might feel the same or even feel better with it. Some low flow systems used in the past, I think there have been rules in the 70s of the BMC Bombay, Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation, but I'll skip that for now. Um, Moving on to the conventional devices, it's simple to think about. You know, when you're washing your hand, you could wash your hand in 300 ml or 30 liters. We spoke about this right in the start, as I said that you're going to use more water now for your hand washes because of Corona, but it depends on how much water you really use. How do you control that? We're coming to that as well. So basically what we are looking here on the graph is a kind of quantity of water that is used for different kinds of fixtures in your house. Talking about low flow devices, they're available in faucets, showers, and WCs and flushes. I suggest if you're having your tea or eating or drinking something right now, this would be a very good idea to keep it aside because what we're going to see might not be very ideal with food. Anyway, so low flow faucets, how do they work? They have aerators in them, which mixes air and gives you a better feel, a foamy feel, while consuming lesser water. So making a low flow faucet is no rocket science, but the logic applied is quite a simple one. Aeration is allowed to take place before the water comes in touch. Another system applied for precise control is a ceramic cartridge instead of the conventional tap that you used to have, the screw type. So the ceramic cartridge taps look something like this. They provide a better control and they are better at water conservation. There are also faucets which have different flow rates. There's an economy zone. You come down, you use less water. If you need higher water, you just go to the higher level and use more discharge. This is what I was talking about. Right now, if you want to reduce your output of the wash basin, the discharge from your wash basin, you just go ahead and install an aerator fixture or a water restrictor. I would not call it a flow restrictor really. It's a low flow fixture basically. So there are different types of streams in that. You have an aerated stream, a laminar stream, and a spray stream. It's very easily replaceable. It's very easy to install. Comes with a complete kit. Here's a little video I'd like to show you the importance of the replacement of this kind of flow restrictors. This has been done by the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika, the BMC, and BMLPA, the license numbers official. So here what we are seeing is a tap discharging totally at a flow rate of 60 liters per minute. I do not know how good the video quality is that you see, but right now, as you can see, a tap is discharging and the measure is being done. The measure is a flow rate of 60 liters per minute. Can you see the bucket filled up so soon? So just moving on ahead because of the constraint of time, you will see the tap is removed. Once the tap has been removed, the low flow device has been installed, and from 60 liters per minute, it comes down to 4 liters per minute. There you see. So huge saving of water, right? You turn on that tap for a minute, you would be discharging 60 liters in that minute. You would be wasting it. At the same tap, you just use 4 liters per minute now. That's a huge saving, right? So even you have showers which have a low flow methodology. They are similar to your faucets. You have air mixing into it, and you have a foam flow jet which comes out of the shower, and it still provides you the same features. Low flow flushes, you have dual flushes available these days. I'm sure many of us have seen that. Instead of flushing a whole 6 liters, you can have a 3 and a 6 liter flush. At the same time, there's something also known as high efficiency toilets. I'll not go into detail in this, but I'll show you pictorial in a graphical way. Sorry about that. I got a little tongue tied there. Um, this is the time I request, if you're eating anything, keep it down. So how do these high efficiency toilet works? There's something known as a maximum performance test done for them. There's a soya bean paste mix made out of that. Paste of 350 gram segments are extruded. I don't know who does 350 grams exactly, and I don't know how that figure was derived, but 350 grams of soya paste modules pellets are made. They are weighed exactly, and they are flushed individually in such high efficiency toilets and checked that are they able to flush off the whole thing. So they put in all the garbage that you can think of, tissue papers and all those things. And here's a little video showing the difference between a high efficiency toilet and a normal toilet. These are those soya pellets, okay? Don't misunderstand this for anything else. So there you go, and now it gets flushed. As you can see, the high efficiency toilet, the design which has been provided in that could flush off everything in very limited water, while a conventional toilet is requiring more than 2 or 3 flushes to wipe that off. So coming to some of the energy, some water and efficiency labeling systems. There's WaterSense in the US, there's Wells in Australia, European water labeling, Wells New Zealand, WEPI in India, that's what we are going to talk about. And we have WeWells in Hong Kong, Wells in Singapore. So the water efficiency products India is a document which gives star rating to every single product which consumes water. Like you have the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which has star ratings for electrical appliances, your heaters, your air conditioners. The energy and water star rating, this completes the whole circle for water and energy conservation. So the more stars you have for energy and more stars for water, your energy and water efficient. So I'll just breeze through that, the kind of rating systems that have been provided. There's rating systems for WCs, there's rating system for urinals, for shower heads, for faucets, for sinks, for health ablution sprays, which are very predominantly unique to India, for dishwashers and even clothes washers. So government rebates, I told you earlier that you need why would government give you rebates? Simple thing. These images talk a lot about it. The government spends crores and crores of rupees on making dams, filtration plants, tunneling system to provide the water, reservoirs, and maintenance. So the government is spending so much money to give you water at such economical rate. When you start conserving the water, these expenses are reduced for the government, and that's the reason why the government would be more than happy to give you rebates. So conserved water is the cheapest source of water, of course. It is the water that you already have. It does not have to be pumped, treated, or distributed. It allows the region to grow without reducing the need for costly upgrades to existing infrastructure. And it is the water that is left in the rivers So cities like Mumbai used to have something known as a slab-based tariff. The more water you use, the more you end up paying. The lesser water you use, the lesser charge you pay. So this also ends up saving a lot of water at a township or a city level. Talking about rainwater harvesting is an ancient practice contrary to what people think today. We also saw that it happened 5,000 years ago in Dholavira. Um, this is some video which I will ask you to look it up on YouTube. That's about a miracle water village in Maharashtra. I would skip this for now, but you can. I strongly suggest that you look it up on YouTube and see it for sure. So, do I have to shut off the tap? This is one big question. I told you while concluding, this is one question we will have, that do I really have to conserve water? Do I have to shut off the tap really? So let's see the scenario in India right now. As per the Ministry of Water Resources, 4% of world's fresh water resources are available in India. This is right off the Ministry of Water Resources website, which has now been renamed as Ministry of Jal something and Ganga Rejuvenation. So let's calculate how much water does India have. So 4% of world's fresh water, which is approximately 4% of 4798400. Just coming to the figure, it is 1,919,360 billion meter cube of water available to us in India. That's a lot of fresh water. Oh, but so much water is trapped, right? It's trapped in the Himalayas, it's trapped in the glaciers, it's trapped under the ground. So that fresh water is gone out of our equation. More importantly, it's also even polluted at times. Of course, things have changed. This is what the Ganga looked like during this lockdown period, but usually this is what the poor river looks like. So that much water is out of equation for us. And okay, so now let's just go with the global average of 0.3% available fresh water to us. So which approximately translates to 5,760 billion meter cube available to us, to all Indians. But what? This much fresh water, the 90% water goes into agriculture. And it is only 7% that we use for our municipal supplies, and the less 3% left goes to the industry. So can you imagine, out of the 5,760 billion meter cube of water, 90% is just going to agriculture. Look at this. This table says that India is the largest consumer of agricultural water withdrawals, with 90%, as I earlier said, only for irrigation and agriculture. The second one, of course, is China, but we'll just concentrate on our country now. So globally, agriculture or irrigation, along with livestock rearing and poultry, accounts for an estimated 70%, while in India we saw is 90%. A figure of 688 billion, a staggering 688 billion cubic meter of water is withdrawn only for agriculture. While if you look at that little small graph down there, 51, that is what we use as domestic users. So imagine in agriculture, what you're seeing in the other color than blue, even if you save 10% of agriculture water, which is very much achievable, you would save almost, in fact, more than what is required for domestic. But in domestic, if you cut down even 50%, you're not even reaching a small fraction anywhere of what you could save. But hey, any saving is a saving, right? So how much water do you really eat? Talking more about agriculture, um, every food that you eat has a trapped amount of water. More importantly, I am more of a vegan now, a vegetarian person, but I'm not professing vegetarianism here. But the most water goes into meat production. As you can see, the very topmost comes beef, then comes meat, and then hey, coffee drinkers here. That's also a huge amount of water consumed for making one serving of coffee, the highest. You can see 11,536 glasses of rainwater just go on to make your one cup of coffee there. So you now know where you can even consume more water. So here I thank you all for being a very attentive audience and staying with me in this passionate journey of mine on water. And I end this with what Dhanasekaran sir started with, that the earth, the air, the land, and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand over to them at least as it was handed over to us. Thank you very much, everybody.
It actually looks to be a very, very tough statement after seeing such a scary presentation. I have a water bottle right now in front of me, and I am of the mind whether I should consume it or I should just preserve it.
So your voice is very low. You're preserving your voice, I think.
No, it is. I am just thinking for the last 30 minutes. I am sitting with one huge 1 liter water bottle. After seeing such a scary presentation, I am deeply moved whether I should consume it now or keep it for Monday.
Yeah.
One. And second, see many of the presenters, particularly on water, when they present, they don't really give us a picture of how things will actually look like for one's imagination when you probably travel forward, say 2050, 2060. The
Absolutely.
letter from a letter to a great grandson. Oh my God, the letter from great grandson to his great grandfather. It's such a letter, literally moved me, and I
It
am
still
literally,
gives me goosebumps.
yeah, I'm still scratching my head. Should we be a victim to corona and say bye bye to the earth, or fight the corona and stay back and face that extreme? What you showed.
Right.
So there is no escape from the nature's reset. One is the man-made reset, and second is the reset that is forced by the nature because of all wrongdoings that we do.
Very true.
And Chintan Sahab, I am telling you, the way you covered the history, mind-boggling. Yeah, seriously. Zindagi mein, at least till this moment, I am not aware of Dolavera. Huh? Despite traveled, Bhuj number of times.
Right, right.
I was the
It's a very
project
beautiful place.
consultant. I was the project consultant for AMW when I took a sabbatical from Ford. I
Right,
remember staying in Bhuj for so many months, but never heard of Dolavera. Yaar. But this is amazing.
right, sir.
Our great grandfathers, pata nahi, all those generations are so great innovators and done a lot of work here. Really, really. I mean, really
Absolutely.
thankful to Chintan Saab. Let me just bring in Mr. Ajay Bansal. Bansal Saab, please unmute karo. Bansal Saab, Bansal ji, where are you? I think he is missing. So let me request Mittal Saab. Yeah, Mittal Saab is back, and Mittal Saab, can you do the honors? Can you do the honors, please?
Good evening. I am Rajan Mittal, President-elect of ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter. Let me thank Mr. Daiya today, not only for the wonderful presentation, not only for the webinar presented in such a beautiful manner, but also for the number of attendees. Today we have broken the earlier records of attendees for our webinars. So, thank you, Mr. Daiya, for all this. And for the
Thank you, sir.
attendees, normally I say thanks for attending, and today I say thanks for attending. And in addition to thanks, I also urge them to conserve water as well as to become ISHRAE members for a noble cause. Thank you all once again.
Daya Saab, I have no words to thank. Thanks, Mittal Saab, for doing the honors, and Daya ji. I mean, it's just a piece of cake for him because he sleeps, he breathes, he eats, he drinks, he spends his life with the water. He is a waterman. So What could give him, goosebump? That's a small word. What could give him another orgasm? Anything to talk about water, You have to excite Mr. Chintan Daiya. Ask him to speak on water. He'll go overboard and he'll put you such an information in front of you where you may be spending an years to collect this kind of an information. And there's the way you presented, I do not know where you pulled all this info. Mind-boggling, man. Mind-boggling. Amazing. I mean,
Thank you, sir.
literally, we had such a, what do you call, the time machine journey. We went back to Harappans and we thought about Mesopotamia. Oh my God, back to class 8, 9, 10. And immediately jump back to science, how the precipitation takes place, then come back and appreciate how our great generations and Aryan invasion. My God, boss, with folded hands, I have to. You are not in front of me to hug you, but I am folding my hands to say such a great thanks on behalf of my students. Yeah, really, we had a huge audience of students today, and they literally enjoyed because it's such a mind-boggling presentation you made. Really, really great. Thank you so much to you and my great colleague Dugal Saab, who has ensured that we go ahead with this kind of a session. Dugal Saab, thank you so much. And for all the audience, students, faculty members, consultants, contractors, and my dear HVAC professionals, ISHRAE members, tomorrow 4 o'clock we have another great session. Another great session on a weekend session. ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter is actually bringing you the fundamentals of chillers. Fundamentals of chillers is going to be presented by none other than Mr. Saurabh Singh Rathore, Associate Vice President of Klima Veneta Climate Technologies. It is nothing but Mitsubishi Electric Group. It's going to be another interesting session. The flyer is already out. Dugal Saab has already posted wherever he has to post. And I have also requested my faculty members to communicate to the students. I request all the students of HVAC, the professionals, consultants, contractors, and all my dear ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter members, please register and let's enjoy the weekend session. It's going to be another mind-boggling session. What a great, pleasant surprise. Bansal Saab is back. Bansal Saab, I am giving you the honors. Please close the session.
Oh, it has been a wonderful session, Dhanaji, and special thanks to Daiya Saab, who took us back to, history. And now, at least, to be very honest, it was, a great knowledge for me personally. I was not aware of it, so now I can boast of we have our own, Harappan and Mesopotamian culture, and yes, the kind of plumbing that they have used, a very like he said, only just 260 of rain annually, and the kind of the kind of channels that they have made, and the water conservation which we are talking today, has been happening, say 5,000 years back. So I think we need to learn from our seniors. We need to learn from our ancestors, and probably if we can carry on forward, I think the day is not far. Then we will be water surplus if we are able
Great.
to follow this.
Great.
Thank you, Daiya sir.
Oh, but
Thank you
Thank
so
you, sir. The honor has been mine.
thank you so much. Thank you for that.
You have
And
again proved that you are a keen listener, and I'm sure you have very closely watched what Daya sir have presented, so you are able to articulate your conclusion remarks. That is so well received, sir. Thank you so much, Daya sir. As I
thank you.
spoke to you, Chitkara University and Chandigarh chapter of ISHRAE will do the honors. We'll send you the letters to you, and it will be posted. And I'm too sure great work you are doing to the society, and Chitkara University and ISHRAE Chandigarh chapter of ISHRAE is wishing you a great weekend, and thank you so much for honoring us with your great intellectual thought process, for engaging our audience for 2 hours. Thank you so much. So have
Thank
a
you.
nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Daiya ji.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.